Welcome back to the Level Up Life Muscle and Mindset Mastery. Today's guest, someone who embodies what it means to lead through challenge and serve with purpose, Chief Nicole Ford. She's the chief of police in Midland, Michigan. But beyond the badge, she's a mother, a mental health advocate, and a powerful example of strength through adversity. She's faced personal tragedy, and instead of shutting down, she chose to speak up for her community, for our youth, and for those walking the hard road of recovery and redemption. We're talking about leadership, loss, mental health, and what it really means to level up when life hits hard. Here again with Waz. Let's get into it. So, Nicole.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, personally, I am a mom of 3. I am married to my husband, Jeff. We are transplants here as a result of me taking the chief's job for the city of Midland. I've been in law enforcement for 28 years. I've been here as the chief of police for 5, which started so typical for my career that with each promotion I take, there's a lot of extra muck that comes with it. And so I came in February of 20. And for those of us from the area, we remember that, we COVIDed. Yep. And we were protesting as a result of the George Floyd incident. And then in May, we had a 500-year flood event. So I regularly tease Midland that they jumped me in the deep end just to see if I could swim.
Yeah, so the flood was a terrible thing for the town, and in addition to that, like everything that was going on with COVID and the George Floyd.
Yes. It was a lot. I mean, this is my first chief's job, and I'm always up for a new challenge. I just didn't expect to have 3 major ones all in one shot. So, but we persevered, and we're still standing. So
that's Midland, though.
It is Midland,
Yep.
A very unique and amazing place.
Mm-hmm. So, tell me a little bit about your education. Like, what made you decide to get into law enforcement, and kind of what's your journey been from schooling up to now?
So I knew from a very young age, and when I speak to youth, I like to let them know that I am the anomaly, the fact that they don't know what they want to do for the rest of their life when they leave high school. They're the normal kids. Mm-hmm. But I was fortunate. I knew from about the time I was 14 that I wanted to go into this profession. So I was part of a group through Boy Scouts of America called the Explorers. And so from 14 into 19, I did that. I'm like, nope, this is what I wanted to do. And I went to school down at Schoolcraft College. I'm from downstate, and got my associates and worked for about 10 years. And then eventually went back for my bachelor's from Eastern Michigan University, and then also my master's from Eastern Michigan University.
Okay.
I don't really remember much of a time that I didn't want to be a police officer. I like the fact that it's different every day. And I know it sounds extremely cliche, but I truly did this job because I wanted to make a difference. Mm-hmm. And now getting to be the chief of police, I get to make a difference in our department also. So for our profession as a whole, which is quite an honor.
Yeah. So before Midland, I tried not to read up on you. I wanted to be organic with it, but what was your job before you took chief? You said you worked up the ranks, but this is your first chief job.
Correct. So I did not take a traditional path in law enforcement. Generally, if you stay in a department for about 5 years, you generally don't leave just because of pensions and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But I had different opportunities along the way. So my most recent job prior to Midland, I was the deputy chief for the city of Flat Rock.
Okay. Where's Flat Rock?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Closer to Ohio than to here.
Okay.
So, and closer to also where I grew up. And then prior to that, I was the district lieutenant for the Huron-Clinton Metropolitan Authority. So it's the largest park system in the state of Michigan, and actually one of the largest park systems in the country. And then prior to that was where I call home, which was Northfield Township. And I left there as a sergeant to start taking these other additional opportunities. So each time I moved, it was for a promotion, which is not the typical method. But
Right.
along the way, I've gotten to see a lot, learn things in different fashions, and I think it makes me a better leader.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think it always will, where you have other leadership to work under. We're always taking pieces, right? And there's pieces that we know we do not want, but then there's a lot of how people operate that we really like.
Absolutely, and that was that was kind of a surprising lesson for me. Is I've taken some steps along the way, and I've worked for one leader in particular that always stands out in my mind, where I learned things the exact opposite of what I thought, but equally as valuable. You just learn what not to do, which is still really important because you bring that with you, and then you don't do that to your employees. But it was a little disappointing initially because it was exactly opposite of how I thought I would learn it. But anytime you're learning, nobody can ever take that away from you. So you carry it with.
Yeah, that's the growth mindset that we preach to our clients, that we talk about on here. And I know from my history up until my recovery, 2016, really my jobs were like 2 years. I'm bored with this, or I would screw it up somehow. 2 years, another job. And I did the same thing. I picked up things from different bosses. Well, right before I relapsed the last time, my previous boss at the Best Western, I had the front desk manager and the general manager, so I had multiple bosses. And my grandma was on her, I didn't know it was her deathbed, but at that time she was in the hospital. It wasn't good. My grandpa had recently passed away, and I remember clear as day, and I had to really work through the pain from it. But I called the front desk manager. She didn't answer her phone. I called the general manager. He didn't answer his phone. And I was the only one staffed for the night. And I had to go to work. I was dutiful employee, right? Wanted to make sure the desk was taken care of. But meanwhile, I wasn't able to see my grandma that night. So fast forward, first thing in the morning, because she was in ICU and they closed visiting hours. So couldn't go see her after my 3 to 11 shift. So I go in there in the morning, and when I walk in, she's coding, and they were doing CPR on her, and I heard her chest crack. So it was pretty traumatic in that moment, but I vowed, like, I will never, if I ever become a boss, if I ever am in a position of management, I will never, ever, ever do that to someone. Like, family always first. So just my little tidbit that really stuck with me about out of all the bosses I've ever worked with, it was something they didn't do that really stuck with me. So,
well, we work really hard. So our big mantra at Midland is we talk about servant leadership. So we before me. And so that's the culture that we push all the way down, starting at my office throughout the building. And accessibility is one of those things. So I regularly joke that my longest successful relationship is myself and my cell phone. So, but it is important that people can get a hold of you. And we already work a really hard job anyways, and we're exposed to a lot of trauma. And so I work really hard to make sure we're not adding to that unnecessarily. And, saying things like family first and getting to be present in those big moments where we can. But, we're a 24/7 operation, 365 days. And so sometimes that's tricky, but that's always our focus.
Yeah, because you can't be unstaffed or understaffed. I mean, those things could have rippling consequences for not just the department and the officers, but for the community, what that could do for the community. So that's a little more intense than leaving the desk unattended.
Right. But, it's still our duty, just as that was yours. And, but at the same time, you can't get a redo for some of those moments either. So we try to weigh that out the best that we can. And we have an amazing crew, and so that helps us accomplish that goal for our people.
As you know, I've had my own run-ins with the Midland police.
Literally.
Prior to when...
You used to be pretty fast, I hear.
Yeah, I was quick, but I mean...
I don't buy that one.
Oh, yeah.
He was wiry, he was fast.
Yeah, ask, who was it? I think it was Jai.
Yeah.
I think it was Jai. Yeah.
And he's fast.
Yeah, and I hopped some fences and I was gone.
See, I believe the hopping. I guess as much as I've seen you run, I don't believe fast.
That was a different life, Waz.
Yeah, that was
it's not the same guy.
Yeah, I was quick on my feet back then. I was a little bit lighter.
Well, a little fear, flight kicks in, and that does wonders
Yes.
for people's mobility, we'll say.
Absolutely.
Well, and then the adrenaline just starts kicking. Like I could relive those days, and my mind, like,
And you can feel it.
yeah, and it's just like I question what I was thinking. Like, why did I even do that? But then it's like, oh yeah, I had a substance use disorder, and I wasn't thinking clearly.
You weren't thinking.
I wasn't making good decisions, and I was always, whenever I was arrested, I was respectful. Basically, I look at it as I got caught. Here I am. I'm not going to make it worse by fighting. I'm not going to make it worse by trying to resist. And keeping in mind, like, you guys are just doing your job. I was the one that made you have to do your job.
Yeah, don't make us do our job is kind of, our joke. I wish more people these days would subscribe to that. Somewhere there's been a shift. We used to kind of call it almost a code in my younger years. I mean, I'm 28 years in, so a lot has changed, but generally we would deal with people and we were respectful to them. They recognized there was a reason why we were there, and we could both move forward. Whereas now there's this culture, I will probably think social media to some degree, that people want to escalate things beyond the level that they really need to go to. And then it just piles on from one side to the next. And we end up in spaces we really didn't need to be. So those days where people were like, no, my bad, turn around, put my hands behind my back. Those were the good days.
Well, I'm getting old, so I guess you could say I'm old school.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It happens overnight. It feels like I was,
does.
21 and starting this job, but it's been a minute.
I was very much the same way as like, you got me, right? But it is, and it doesn't. I think social media is a great example because I didn't raise my kids that way. Same thing. Where no, they're out here to help us. Whether there's lights and I was going too fast, or your mom did the old Michigan rolling stop through. Like they're not the bad guys. And it starts at a very young age where I don't remember how old the kids were. And they were scared. I'm like, why are you scared? Like, we were going to be late for your ball game. Now we're going to be really late for your ball game. But my son was scared, and I didn't know why. Like, you'll make first pitch. You're just not going to have the full time to warm up. But there's absolutely nothing to fear.
I don't know what it is, though. I mean, there's some weird, like, innate wiring that comes with it. Even if I were to get pulled over, I would still get anxious with the lights and everything. It's hardwired into us, but I do very much appreciate that you're teaching your kids that we're here to help, because here in Midland, that's certainly something we work really hard to be. We want to be, as a whole, as our department, a member of this community to serve our citizens and those that travel through it. So we work really hard on community policing and engagement and outreach. So we very much appreciate when parents teach them not to be afraid versus, if you don't behave, we're gonna send you with that officer. And we always are like, please don't tell them that. We want them to reach out to us if they need us. And that does wonders.
Yeah. And I mean, the respect, like Adam said, I mean, you got a job to do. And I mean, everybody deserves that respect. Always.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I remember the view of police is when I was incarcerated under various times. I mean, if you just, the police in there are the COs,
yep.
the guards, and if you were out on the yard, and this is DOC, if you're out on the yard and you are seen talking to one, you're exiled, right? That's a big no-no. That's against the code in there. And it doesn't mean like he could be your friend on the outs and he's doing his job, you know, like
Right.
you could have known
They don't
him.
know if you guys grew up together.
Yeah, like, you could have known him, but you can't talk to him. And it's less so, I would say, in the county jails.
Oh, absolutely.
But when you get into actual DOC, it's like us versus them. And then, I mean, I'm all for like prison reform and all that, because you go in there and you're thrown into an environment that's just, it's not conducive to change. It reinforces those thinking errors, the problems with the thought process out here, that you guys are the enemy when you're not. You're fellow citizens of the community. And I know in there it was like, you know, snitches gets, you hear that
Snitches
out here.
get stitches,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
And my legal issues, I didn't hold the other person accountable. And now that I have hindsight and I can look back, they didn't have to pay back any of the money from the checks. They didn't spend any time. They had no consequence. What happened to their life is they continued to use, where I was incarcerated. So, my choice to not say anything altered her trajectory in a way that, you know, one of the best things that happened to me was when I think it was sheriff's department came and they pulled drugs out of my pocket while I was in the back of an ambulance. And I was like, yelling also. I was in a crazy state at that time. I was yelling like, that's not mine. You planted that.
These aren't my pants.
Yeah.
You hear that one a lot.
Yeah, these aren't my pants. That type of thing. I was trying to I was backed into a corner. I was caught, and in that moment, I was delirious coming out of an overdose. So it was like,
Were you Narcaned?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So and I'm like, they had I don't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure I could look at the reports. I'm sure, but I'm pretty sure they had to give me an EpiPen too and an adrenaline shot because for some reason my shirt was ripped open. I don't know if that was part of the resuscitation process, but
Yeah, they probably had leads on
yeah,
you.
so that's what it was. So
Yep.
they Narcaned me the leads. But when I came to, there had been time that I was already up and alive that had passed that I wasn't conscious for because I was strapped to a gurney and I didn't know why. They were saying I was being combative and I'd swung at the paramedics and all this, which I don't remember any of that. But my point to all of that is you guys are the reason I'm here. The paramedics, the police, and that was the best thing that could have happened to me in that moment, and followed that up with a program, drug court. That's why I'm here today, and that's why I like this series of events that included all of our public services that have allowed me to turn my life around. So
That's one of the things I love about Midland is, I spent a good portion of my career downstate in Wayne County, and we're kind of resource barren in a lot of spaces there. Whereas you come to Midland and we have things like recovery court and My Hope, so that people can get the help they need versus repeating this pattern over and over again. So that's something I'm always extremely proud of that we have here, that we have access to those types of programs so that people can finally move past and kind of get out of their own way.
Yeah.
Sometimes with a little helpful nudge.
Well, I had Sheriff Swanson on in there. I don't know if they have recovery court in
I'm not sure if Genesee does.
Genesee, but he talked about the Ignite. And I got to go into the jail, which was quite an experience, how everything played out. But it's really cool to see this, the part of the program, it goes to basic psychology. When you work at something and then you're celebrated for accomplishing that, wherever you are, they're in oranges and people are clapping for them because they just got their GED,
Right.
Or they just got a certificate in welding or whatever it is. It sets a tone for when they get out and it gives them skills. So, but that experience going in there, I had to work through some.
I was going to say, that had to be a little PTSD inducing would be my guess.
That was my first time back in jail since I had gotten out. I walked in, there was a deputy in the lobby, and that's a big jail. So I walk in, he's like, yeah, I'm here for Ignite. He says, go right over to that line. So I'm waiting in line, and I get up to the front, and they're like, you're not on the list. I was like, oh, well, I've been talking with, Dave Custer, and Sheriff Swanson invited me here. So they told me when to be here. I'm here for security check. And then he's like, well, let me go check something. And then I hear, last time a police officer or a deputy had said, Mr. Whitbroat.
Oh.
I'm like, it was that moment, like everything stopped, and I had that flashback of when I was in there because, I've spent some significant time, and he waves me over. I walk over there, and it's like, yeah, the VIPs are back here, and I was just like,
how did I get
crazy.
here?
This is absolutely crazy. And then end up going back, and I got catcalled by some female inmates in there, which was, I'm like, trying to turn my head and not look. And it was a very unique experience, but I love to see, the My Hope, the recovery court, which saved my life, was a part of it. The mental health court, the Ignite, like all these things popping up, because when I went to prison, none of this was. It was before recovery court. It was before any of these programs. And, yeah.
Well, I mean, full disclosure, it took the criminal justice system as a whole a minute to change our thinking, to change our approach. I mean, I know when we first started Hope Not Handcuffs, many years ago, explaining to officers that someone could walk in here and we're not going to run them for warrants and we're just going to get them into treatment. It took a long while because for many years, people treat, and still to this day, people treat addiction as a choice. You made a choice and you put yourself here. Therefore, this, and this. And so it took a cultural shift as a whole for our criminal justice community to recognize that, no, this is a disease, and many people have ended up in this space for different reasons, and we don't know what those are. And we want people to reach out to us. We want people to call 911 when there is an emergency and an overdose occurring versus being afraid to call. And so it took us a while as a profession to catch up to that. But I'm really proud of where we are compared to where we started. And change is slow.
Right. Well, and I know the officers in town here are, and it's I don't know if they even know the small interactions that they have with people, that the impact that has, because I could list off a bunch of them, but they treat me like a human.
Mm-hmm.
They're very kind. They're very polite. They actually celebrate my recovery to me, like, "Hey, I'm happy that you're clean, man." So I'm like, oh, this is awesome.
It's good for us too, because we don't always get to see that win. We generally get called when things are at their worst, and then we don't get to see you when you come out the other side. So, when I look back through my career, one of my favorite moments is somebody cornered me at a store, and I heard them, I was Officer Ford then, and I'm like, and I'm in a really bad tactical position. And they wanted to tell me, you got me at my bottom. And as a result, I'm here today. And we don't get that a lot. We don't get the other side of the story. So it's good for our officers too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've talked with Midland in general has a really good, atmosphere between the sheriff's department, the Midland Police Department, the judicial system, because I've talked with prosecutors, talked with judges that are, super supportive of not just me as an individual, but everybody that's in recovery. Did you know too? I think it was, I can't remember the website, Midland's rated in the top 5 or something for best recovery communities in
I
the
did
nation.
not know that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I saw that.
I did not see that. Wow.
And I'm not surprised.
Midland does a really good job of wrapping around people. And that doesn't mean, I'm sure we can meet people that would argue that. I mean, it doesn't mean we get it right all the time. It doesn't mean everybody perceives it as such. But as a whole, as a community, I think they do a really good job of wrapping around our citizens. And a lot of times where one service lets off, we have another service coming in to catch the next spot. And I think it's truly utopian sometimes to have that opportunity of resources that so many other places, our neighboring cities don't have those. So Midland is super unique that way. And it's one of the things that I love about working here and then now living here.
Now let's take a moment to thank our sponsors, Pine Haven Assisted Living. At Pine Haven Assisted Living, they believe in making every resident feel at home. Nestled in the peaceful countryside of Hemlock, Michigan, they offer compassionate care in a family-like environment where residents can enjoy independence with the support they need. Registered nurse-owned and operated, their team provides personalized care, home-cooked meals, and a range of activities to ensure your loved ones continue to live a fulfilling life. They also have alpacas and llamas on site to enrich the lives of their residents. Experience the warmth and comfort of Pine Haven. Call them today at 989-295-6632. That's 989-295-6632. Or you can visit them on their website at pinehavenassistedliving.com. That's pinehavenassistedliving.com for more information. Now, back to the Level Up Life. So we've talked a little bit about my resilience, a little bit about his. It's hard for me to even bring up because when I think about it, my heart crushes. It just shatters for you. I want to hear about how that impacted you. How do you smile now? Like these are real, like, I know I'm a stepdad. I don't have biological kids, but I can't even imagine the pain of losing a child.
So, when we were talking about when I started here in February of 20, just before that, December 5th of 2019 is when I lost my son, Zachary, who died by suicide at the age of 16. And Zachy's a twin. And so Dylan, is here with us in Midland, along with their older sister, Mackenzie. So it's always dicey for me, first of all, trying to figure out how I say, because I will never, ever negate the fact that I am Zachy's mom, too. But do I want to open up that can of worms with everybody? So my general answer is I'm a mom of 3. It just happens to be that 2 of them are still here with me. And how do I smile? Some days better than others. When you first asked me to come here and, I look at the title of Leveling Up and Mastery, and I don't feel like I've accomplished any of that. Some days I truly feel like if people really knew what I thought in my head, they'd be like, wow, she's a fake, because I don't feel necessarily like I'm strong, or I do feel like I never had the option to quit because I still had 2 other kids where I am their person, and they needed me here. I would be lying to tell you that if my situation were different, if I maybe wouldn't have made a different decision. But that's when you figure out your why. That's like when you really look at your why you're here. And so I was here approximately a year, almost to the day, in fact, when I finally shared the news with my own department. So one of my big platforms for my officers is mental health. First responder communities do a terrible job with mental health as a whole, and I wanted to help change that. And so I believe that I have to walk the walk, and to have this whole big part of my story where I've lost a child to suicide, and my people, my blue family, don't know it, felt fraudulent. And so I decided at a department meeting, my first department meeting, that I would take that opportunity to tell them my story. The unintended consequence is I ended up with some very big, burly men that started crying. And that does bad things for me because it's really hard for me to maintain at that point. But the bonus to that was it unintentionally created this safe space where we could talk about that we might not be okay. And, sometimes people are still really cautious about saying things to me, or they don't want to bring it up. And so I like to remind them that I like to get to talk about Zachary because that's how we keep him here. I don't get to keep him here physically, but we do good things in Zach's honor on his birthday, and we keep random act of kindness cards with us, and we do those. That's how we get to keep Zachary here. And so one of my decisions is I decided to start speaking about our family's journey publicly in hopes that even if we could help one family not go through this ever, that it was still a win. And so that's what I've done. And, some days I do it really well. Like right now I'm kind of powering through it, even though with the intro I thought you were going to take me out.
It almost got me
I know,
too.
right? I was like, I'm watching you, and I'm like, oh, this is going south. But I've also been speaking publicly where my voice catches, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I just need a minute. And I take a deep breath, and I keep going. There's some days where getting out of bed is truly the biggest challenge because I just can't feel it happening that day. And you learn to power through that. Or some days I just take a sick day, One of the things that I have worked on really hard, especially I would say in this last 2 years, is grace, not only for others, but also for myself, because there's lots of things, especially as this is going to be plastered out, God knows where. People will say nasty things about me, but you would be hard-pressed to say anything worse about me than I've already told myself. And so that's something that I'm working really hard on, is to not be my own worst critic at all times.
Well, I heard a lot of good stuff there. You lead by example. That's what you did. By opening up as you led by example. I'm big on authenticity. I'm big on, I think, in general, men, we've been, a lot of us, and maybe not so much like younger people, maybe it's starting to shift a little bit, but I still feel like it's not right for men. Like, men are taught not to share their vulnerability. It's a weakness. So I feel like as a leader in a leadership position, being able to do that shows an enormous amount of strength. The vulnerability we have our good days and bad days. Like all my relapses, my cycle was use, it was use, get in trouble, abstinence, relapse, use, get in trouble, abstinence, relapse. And usually the relapse had a catalyst behind it of loss. So I'm sitting here and relating. I always try to relate in everything. It's how I find empathy for people. I'm sitting here listening to you talk, and it's just like, I don't know how she does it. Some days, like, how you do it every day, that's probably the hardest thing that anybody can endure. So I admire your strength. The point you made about somebody's gonna say something. Somebody's always gonna say something. It's just like, in those situations, it's more of a reflection of what they have going on internally than what it is about the person they're saying it towards. So
It's suicide has, losing a child is tragic to a level. I mean, I've buried both my parents. I've buried a sister. Actually buried my sister 16 days after we buried my son. So I've done several levels of loss, but losing a child is like nothing I can describe. And losing a child to suicide has extra stuff attached because people just don't know, they don't understand. And so they say terrible things like, oh, he took the easy way out. Or, and if there's anything that I can tell you about my son is that he was brave and he fought every day. And sometimes mentally you lose that battle. You just can't do that fight anymore. And you just want the pain to stop. People don't realize oftentimes when people attempt suicide or die by suicide, they're not looking to kill themselves. They're looking to stop the pain. It breaks my heart with all of the training that I have, and as close as I am to all of my kids, that I didn't realize that he was struggling that hard. I thought we were at a better space. And so, whereas had it been a couple years prior, I don't know that I would have been near as surprised, I guess would be the word. But I thought we were in a way better space. So I blame myself every day. And that's something that I work on. That's something I work on with a therapist. We've recently started the EMDR journey. And part of that is, if I can ever live a space where it just doesn't feel so heavy every single day, that would be amazing to get to be that, because that's one of the things I don't feel like there's any remote version of me that was there prior to losing Zachary. Like that person's gone. But I would like to get to lead a lighter life. But also I talk to my officers about it, that we have these opportunities for growth and resiliency and healthy mental living. And so again, I'm trying to walk the walk. And a couple of my officers had gone through some EMDR, and they come back and they're like, all right, Chief, it's your turn. So we're going to try it. And I think it's really important that we as a society talk about this openly versus like hiding it in the basement, because when we keep it in the dark, that's when people feel alone.
Right.
And when people are alone, that's where they struggle. So we have to bring this to light. So I believe we should be able to talk about, hey, I have my therapy appointment, just like, hey, I have a dentist appointment. This is one of our biggest muscles, and we don't talk about it.
Some very high performers actually do routine mental health checkups because I listen to a ton of podcasts, and that's one thing I've heard people talk about is, well, I go see a counselor regularly as a routine checkup. Anything I'm going through, they help me work through. But there is a stigma with mental health in general. So, you went to see a counselor?
Right.
What for? It's like, it's just routine maintenance,
Right.
You can say that. It doesn't really
matter. It's like I got my teeth cleaned.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things that, that we do at Midland PD. We have our own psychologist that we retain. And so officers can reach out to him if they need. They don't have to go through me. I am pushing, and I just haven't quite figured out how to work the logistics yet, and also sell it to my guys, that we would do a routine checkup, because the reality is we see like 3 times the amount of traumatic incidents than most average citizens do. And to think that that's not going to spill over anywhere is just naive and foolish. And so that's one of the goals moving forward. So not only do we work hard on mental health in my personal life, we also work on it in my professional life and try to make us a good, healthy citizen all the way around, because I want my guys to be really good and high performing while they're here, but I also want them to be able to enjoy their retirement.
Yeah. And it goes a lot back to that learning thing, where I don't think you can have enough loops in the belt for the bullets that you need when it comes to the mental health, and how much I just gained and how much I'm ready to find out what you're doing next Thursday from 3 to 5 when we go to the juvenile center, because a lot of conversations with them about similar stuff. And I'm constantly saying that, where anybody and everybody, because what works right now getting through today may not work tomorrow.
Absolutely.
And it might not work a couple hours. I'm very familiar with that same demon. And I know exactly what you mean about getting through the day and waking up and everything else. Where how powerful that was, sitting here going, wow, them kids will be just sitting there floored hearing that, and how much they could gain from it. So do keep that in mind some Thursday.
Absolutely. No, that's part of the reason why I chose to start speaking about it, because I think a lot of times when you look at the picture from the outside, people would think that, I have it all figured out, and, I'm educated and I have a good job. Like all the pieces that people measure success by look like they fit. But you never know what's going on in people's brains unless they tell you. And so I think when you see people that look like you or look different than you, and you realize that our struggles are similar and that you're not alone in that is such a powerful piece of connection that it does amazing things for both parties.
Yeah.
When
you feel safe, it's a lot easier to be vulnerable.
Very true.
Or even learn, because and you have that relating, and you can let your guard down instead of thinking you need this wall built.
Right.
Because that's how I've spent most of my life, and how I get through so many times, and I'm better at it now, but I won't even say I'm good at it.
Well, and I think, I've chosen a unique career to boot. I mean, you may not recognize, but I don't look like all the other officers all the time. I'm still very much a minority in this field, and especially in law enforcement leadership. Female chiefs are still only, depending on which stat you read, 2 to 4% nationwide. So I already feel like, you kind of have to put this version of yourself out there. And so to open myself up and share this vulnerability with people, and then to do it publicly and possibly face judgment. It was hard, and it's still hard on certain days, because there are people that will judge, and there are people that will think less of me. But I've also had a really good response of, thank you so much. My child's going through this, and I didn't know that anybody else went through this, So there's that moment. But anytime you put yourself out there, as you well know, you're going to have critics. But I think sometimes it's because you hit a nerve with those people, or it's easy to judge when you haven't walked in somebody's shoes.
And you talk about, people putting the face on, and I think that that's a lot of the problem, going even in deeper with a lot of the suicides, is because people they're not authentic. They put this picture on social media, whatever platform, and their life is perfect, where maybe they're doing great financially and they're out of shape physically, or they're doing great physical health, but emotionally they're just barely getting by at the gym. And then you compound that with daily scrolling, where people are like, oh, their life's perfect, and we're all living up here, like, feel like we're falling short. And it's not perfect, but we feel like everybody else's life is perfect. It's like it isolates us in a way that, I mean, those things can lead to those types of outcomes. I know when I was personally in deep drug addiction, there were times when I would buy a larger quantity of heroin and I would sit and look at it and I considered, well, maybe I should just do it all and see what happens. You know, never did it, but there were times that I thought to myself, this world would definitely be a better place without me, because I'm not adding anything to it. I'm talking people out of their money. I'm manipulating this person. I'm manipulating this person just so I can get high. I'm breaking laws just so I can get high, and it gave me a really low self-worth. But even today, I have challenges. I get imposter syndrome, and I try to talk about it. Like having this podcast too is like, what am I doing? But it's really to bring awareness to topics like this, like suicide, like substance abuse, and people in positions like you that, are willing to be authentic and talk about this stuff. It shows people out there you can be strong and you can be vulnerable at the same time, because we're all the same in that way.
Well, yeah, and you don't know what life is going to give you, and it's really easy to look on social media. Social media to me is truly such a double-edged sword, because I love some of the connection it provides for like our relatives that live out of state and whatnot. But the flip side to that is it also gives people the impression that everybody else has it figured out and their life is perfect, because generally people don't put the messy stuff on Facebook, and that's probably not the intent of it, or on Instagram or Snap or whichever one you want to choose. So I think especially for our youth, it's like parents truly should monitor. And now we have things like Life 360 and different ways to monitor those types of things, because I think it's isolating for some kids, because they think their friends have it all figured out. And if they actually sat and talked with them, they'd realize they don't have it any more figured out than them, but they just go by what they see. And I think a lot of times as humans, we just go by what we see instead of taking the step and maybe asking a question or being curious.
I agree. I think I agree with the whole social media thing it's a blessing, because it gives people platforms to talk about topics like this. But then it's also, you get the people putting fronts out there and the illusion that everybody's life is perfect. And then on top of that, cyberbullying.
Absolutely.
I watched the 13 Reasons Why series, and I mean, kids bullied me when I was in elementary school. My parents smoked. I got bullied when my mom made cookies, and one of the kids like, I'm not eating this. This smells like smoke. And they threw it in the trash can, and that hurt my heart. Like,
right.
Or getting bullied for the fact I didn't grow up in a wealthy house. We had thrift store clothes, and there's other kids wearing Tommy Hilfiger, and they would make fun of me because I smelled like smoke. I wore, these clothes, and I remember that stuff today.
As an adult, you still carry it.
So the impact that these kids are having on each other.
Well, there's no escape now.
That's it. Right? Yeah, exactly.
We used to be able to get dropped off the school bus and it's done till the next day. Now they can't get off their phone or computer, whatever it is,
or Fortnite.
And it continues and it continues. And I don't believe when getting bullied that people told me, I don't think ever happened, you should kill yourself, like they will now. Where,
well, that's that social media emboldens people to say things that they would never say to your face.
Yeah.
And that's hard, even as the chief of police, as I see things get posted on something that we've done for the police department and people want to comment. It's like, geez, oh, Pete, we just can't win,
Yeah.
So, and to your point, we used to get to go home and shut it off. And so you could regroup, recharge, and go back and fight another day, right? But now, even if these kids move school districts, because social media has such a far reach, it follows them. It's beat them to that new school already. So our kids just don't get a break. But I do always also like to take the opportunity because I think oftentimes people think teenage suicide and they automatically believe that there's bullying. No, that's not it either. There's no one size fits all for suicide. Yeah. It's not, socioeconomic. It's not age. It's not, race. It goes across all panels. And, my son was very popular and he was known for how funny he was. I often joke that he was also known for his really great hair, because I think people think, oh, well, my child has a lot of friends and they're popular and they have a plan, that they're not at risk. So we still need to be doing those check-ins with our kids, because it's not always the kid in the dark trench coat that's really sad and sullen and doesn't talk to anybody. It can be that person, but it's not always.
Right.
And so I like to always kind of take that opportunity, because it can be anybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what does leveling up mean to you?
I put a lot of thought into that. And I think for me, it's more in my personal space at this point. So this past December, I graduated from the FBI National Academy. It's been on
Congrats.
my training to do bucket list for a good portion of my career. And so I was initially slated to go January of 21. Well, a lot was happening in the world, so I didn't get to go. And so I finally got to go. And it's the only time in my adult life where I got to focus on me and what goes on with me. And I thought it was very interesting that my niece, my niece is only, a few years younger than me because I have much older sisters. She pointed out, Aunt Nikki, I don't think you ever actually dealt with the grief of losing Zach. And I thought about it, I'm like, you know what, you're right, because I didn't get to. I had a brand new job that I had to come and perform at a high level, and there's a lot of people that count on me. And so we start thinking about this. So this past year in particular, I've tried to put some work into self-care. And so for me, leveling up is making myself a better version today than I was yesterday. And I don't always nail that. Mm-hmm. Some days I do better than others. Other days I do a really crappy job sleeping and drinking water and all the things that we all know we're supposed to do, but we're not great at. So for me, leveling up is taking myself to a space that I haven't been before personally. I'm not where I want to be physically, trying to find my space back there. But that's what life is, right?
Fear comes first, though.
Right. I know.
That was a solid, beautiful answer.
That's like perfect in every way, because it's a growth mindset. You just said that. And you can't pour from an empty cup.
True.
You hear there's a cliche. You got another one?
Oh, I'm sure I got a million.
There's a ton of cliches that go along with growth mindset, and that's leveling up. You don't have to. I think sometimes people just overwhelm themselves.
Absolutely.
Too,
and then we just do this and we don't move.
It puts us in action, and it's like, you know what? If I sit on the couch all day, I'm going to walk to that door one time, and then I'm going to walk back just today. That's a step forward. It could be as simple as, I'm going to call a gym to see about a membership. It can be as simple as, you know what? I'm going to skip that coffee this morning. So no matter what avenue, it's just baby steps going forward. They compound over time.
Yeah, it's the big picture. I think oftentimes we think that if we take that step back, and in life, a version of a relapse, far less dramatic than yours, but it's that all or nothing thinking, like, now I just blew it. I've really tried to work on the concept of how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time. And because there's parts of my job that can be really overwhelming, preparing for different things. And if I put all of that in front of me, then I just don't do anything. It freezes you. Mm-hmm. And so I've really worked hard on doing those tiny bits, because I really believe that as humans, in that ripple effect, that one little stone in the pond and how it spreads out, you have no idea how much you've affected somebody else, and you may never get to know, but that's how we change the world.
Yep.
And I love that thought. I think it's way less daunting. I think that's so able to be accomplished by anybody. And I think if more of us did that in our day-to-day, we would be in a way better space in this world.
Oh,
Yes.
I'm big on the ripple effect because you can never know the impact of our words. Whether it's, oh, those shoes are ugly, or, hey, I see you got nice new shoes. There's it's a difference of opinion, but how that person can feel from that ripples out. Now if they're cut down, now they go cut someone down. And
Right.
and
You
so
just
on.
feed
And
the
it's
system.
That's another vote for that shirt being made.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. There is a few of them that we had to choose, and I was huge on that one. He ixnayed it because I'm like, we need to make it a blue tie-dye so it looks like ripples going on.
Oh.
And he says, I don't do tie-dyes. And it died on the list.
I'm not a big camo guy either.
I didn't say anything about
solid
camo.
colors.
You don't want the ripples on the
Monochromatic.
camo.
Yeah, I think this world, mindset matters. And that was something that I joked that they lured us in with the FBI training. We thought we were going to do all this, physical training, which we did, but they tricked us and they started poking in our brains. And, and that mindset of just changing, pointing out the negative thing and noticing that and taking the moment to point out 3 good things that happen at the end of your day, just small things. And how quickly that changes how you view things was just mind-blowing to me. And our mind truly is this powerful muscle. We just don't even use it near to the capacity. And so it's totally my passion. I read all kinds of, The Body Keeps Score and all these different books about it because it's just this untapped resource that we have.
Yeah.
And I just think it's amazing.
Yeah.
I do too.
It's our best tool that we have for anything. And mindset is absolutely everything.
I think that would be a good challenge for our audience. Like, what's one thing that you can reframe in your life that's happening? And I'll give you an example. You get a flat tire, right? It's a problem. A lot of people go into that incident thinking, my tire's flat. Now, from where I've been, having a vehicle is a privilege. And you can look at that as a gold-plated problem. You're like, I guess how many people don't have cars?
Absolutely.
How many people don't, they don't have, like, there's places in the world there aren't vehicles and they don't have gas stations accessible, and it's a gold-plated problem. So I challenge you to reframe something in your life and then comment that in the section below. Don't forget, click like, subscribe, share this with your friends. I'm grateful for all of you. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Have a great day. Don't forget, hit subscribe.